Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all well lubricated, but still awake. And I just want to tell you that this is not going to be a session about sex as you normally think of it. She's not going to suggest any kind of play sex toys. She's not going to, after all, she's a, what are you?
Sex and trauma psychotherapist. Yes, sex toys are part of that, but not the main thing.
All right, fine. So I'm really looking forward to quite an enlightening session, because really this book is quite a primer in the way that she's patterned it. Like she's sort of explained the theory, then she's actually given a case study, and then she's given a section which says, what are the takeaways from this chapter? And then finally, there's a workbook at the end of each chapter, where you're supposed to do this exercise and not do it as a literary exercise, because then you get lost in the words, but really as an exercise of conversation with yourself. Yep, because the whole idea is to open yourself up, correct?
That's right.
Yeah, so it's really about taking the condom out of your mind and really reaching into your body and into your heart. So I think it's an important, serious piece of work, and at the same time, it's extremely practical. So even if you think you don't have a problem, I suggest you still read it. Not so that you begin to have a problem when you don't actually have one, but you'll really understand what this whole subject is about. Now, if you'll just excuse me to speak a little more, and since we are at the Khushwant Singh Festival, I really think that Khushwant Singh was among the first writers to kind of deflate, sorry to use a double entendre, but to kind of take all this hypocrisy that surrounded us. He was really the first one to prick all the gas bags, all the the hypocrisy that we had. And one of the finest chapters, cover stories that we had in the Illustrated Weekly was called Sex on the Mind and Fear in the Heart. Now, at that time, we were talking of the 1970s. We were talking of a very different kind of socialist situation, political context that we lived in. But things haven't really changed. In the mid-90s, I went to Bangalore, and that was the time when Bangalore was changing. And suddenly, this very conservative, Kannada, old pensioners town really, turned into the Silicon Valley of India. And the young people, all these techies, overnight, they had to sort of be at the bars, they had to sort of swing, they had to wear their Doc Martens, and they were in this real, I could see the crisis that they were in, because all their peers said, the Nike ad, just do it. And as soon as they went home, their mother said, don't. So they were really caught on this cleft stick between just do it and don't. Come now to the 21st century, and you have this explosion of social media, which is kind of Insta reels, body shaming. Why am I like this? Oh my God, why don't I look like whoever, and why can't I sing like whoever? Why is this one a model, got a model-like frame? And the whole situation of the body, your sexuality, everything has changed. There's this terrible word, FOMO. You're constantly plagued. That's the big bogey in your life of fear of missing out. And there's no way you can escape it, because you're hooked onto that screen of yours. So, please, will you tell us, where do we go from here?
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to this beautiful literary festival. It's such an honor to speak with you specifically because of all the work that you've done way before people like me were on the scene. And now there are so many young people doing social media and talking so much about sex positivity, but there's not a lot of depth. And I think you were one of those people that had such a big impact on me through your column, because it was always a play of words that was really kind of got you thinking differently. So before I go into what you said, ma'am, I would just request anyone who's here, who like in the back as well, I can see that you're listening, come up front, because the deeper, the more close you are, the deeper we can go. And it is not going to be such a light and fun is part of that, but it's, this is depth therapy, this is art therapy, this is sex therapy. It's intersections of where the heart is blocked. A lot of my work is very less about the material aspects of sex, and it is more about wounds and scars and trauma and heart. If you can't have sex, your heart is probably blocked. If you're not able to retain sexual connection with your partner, your heart is probably blocked. If you are very young and you're in school, college, you can see so many school students were there in the morning, and you're just developing your first crush, this is a great time to kind of, in life, to kind of see the cycle of sexuality and life, as we were talking about earlier. So that's the approach of my book, which is called Unashamed, and it is very much a healing book. It's about sexual healing. And so I love that you all listen to me and you're actually there. That's lovely. So if you would like, come closer. Just please, we can go deep if you go deep, Yeah, play of words intended.
All day. I must tell you, with Khushwant saying, my first cover story was about Indians in cabaret. And Khushwant Singh sort of sent back the manuscript with first rate written on it. But below it, he had said, I've cleaned out all the double entendres. And I didn't even know that these were double entendres. So I'm sorry, either I have sex on my mind, but no fear in my heart. But I will come up with these words, and they are purely unintentional.
Yes, that's beautiful. That's part of the conversation. So to talk about FOMO a little bit, I would like Honey Ji. So interestingly, the person who's helping us, his name is Honey. And the session is called, let's talk about sex, baby. And so there's all these words that are suddenly very new in the urban Indian context, and a lot of young people are trying to force themselves into sex positivity. And this FOMO, like fear of missing out, pretty huge on college campuses today. We are a conservative society by nature, patriarchal by orientation, and we have had, explored in my book, a lot of European influences, and now we are in the American influence part of our social consciousness. So there's a lot of American ideas we take on as our own, including sex positivity. So one of them being a person called Kusha. You can just play, or you just go on the text that I have for you. Yeah, you can just. Okay, so this is just part of something I'll talk about. Honey Ji, you can just scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, and more, and stop. So this is typically what comes up in art-based sex therapy. This was made by someone called Kusha, who was one of my clients. Names are changed, confidentiality remains intact. But I took her consent to write about her in chapter 1. She came to me from Bangalore, one of these very powerful, woke, young people, to be like, I don't have any problems, Neha, I don't have any problems. It's just that I'm so angry that nothing fits in my vulva. So I was like, what do you expect me to do about that? And she said, just give me a sex toy and just recommend, this orientation, that orientation, which one should I do, and I'll be good to go. Lo and behold, our entire process lasted 4.5 years, in which she came up with this beautiful piece of art. This is, of course, partly mine, partly hers, like I've painted it with her. And that's me down there, kind of looking at her sexual experiences. So if I can just go into it, she talked about the fact that she wasn't able to masturbate. She had never experienced an orgasm at 25, and all of her friends around her were very sex positive and having multiple relationships and wanted to call themselves feminists and liberal and all this. And so she said, just give me the right sex toy. That's all it is, right? I should just get that in, and I'm good to go. It wasn't the case. And we don't think about sex very deeply in India. Even the name, even the word sex brings up so much shame. I'm glad so many people are here, but everybody has a different reason, and I don't know if it's to investigate our own shame around it, right? So she wasn't able to really understand that some of the trauma that was showing up for her came from this memory that was, and in psychotherapy we call it an imprint. When she was 6 years old, she was changing. Her mother was in the bathroom, and there was this large window, and there was this older gentleman.
1 second. I think you should also say that her mother had told her to be very conscious of her surroundings.
Yeah. So she was a 6-year-old child. So mother was like, be careful when you change, go in the bathroom, just general things mothers do. Good mothers do. So she was changing, and she took her clothes off, and she's a naked 6-year-old, and she's looking towards the right, and there's large window in front of her in her bedroom, and she sees these two eyes of this older gentleman, about 70 years old. Probably shouldn't call him a gentleman, because he was staring at a 6-year-old's body. And she screams, and her mother comes to her rescue, hugs her, and takes her out of that context and says, "Are you all right?" "Yeah, good." They thought mother didn't process the memory with her. Mother didn't know how to. She was just kind of like, all right, I don't know what happened. And then cut to 25, when she says to me after 4 months of therapy that, "Neha, actually, I'm really pissed off at that man's gaze that keeps coming when I want to explore pleasure. When I try to explore pleasure, I'm seeing him." And of course, you ask how long ago, and she's like, 20 years ago. And of course, Indian society is like, move on, just have a drink, just have sex with someone, don't worry about it, not a big deal. And it really wasn't that, Haniji. Keep going.
1 second. Do you want to say that since you couldn't express yourself, you said the art?
Yeah, I'll just go into that. Yeah, beautiful. Keep going. So this is some of the artwork we explored. I'll show you more in a bit. Keep going, Haniji. Keep going, keep scrolling down. This is just important to show you how deep sexuality goes, and, keep going down. So this is, of course, 6 large paintings that she made. Okay, keep going down. Chalte rahiye. No, down. Yeah. And then stop, please. I'll just read this, Bachi ji. "Everything I know about sex is from my babysitter." Thoda aap enlarge kar sakte to acha rahega. "She was 31, I was 12. She was sweet, caring, gorgeous, and in an open marriage with her husband. I was devoted to her pleasure. I am now 26, and she has long left me for someone less needy than me, but I still love her. Why am I so broken? Last year, I slept with a girl I was casually seeing when she was drunk. Deep down, I knew she was too drunk to consent, but I went ahead anyway. I don't know what to do. Nothing works for me anymore." And so she wrote about more of the trauma in her life, and actually, I then took it forward to many more experiences and did this art show about sexual trauma, not only in childhood, but also in adulthood, in teenage, and post-puberty. And we wrote this poetry together, which really helped her to process some of the parts that her family, her school friends, her counselor, she was privileged enough to have a school counselor who was just like, "Don't worry, focus on your 10th, relax, it's all right." Because she wasn't trained, she didn't know. Her first boyfriend, all of these people were trying to say, "It's not that deep, bhai, just chhod do na, kya ho gaya? Past is the past, aage badho, have a drink." And it didn't work. What worked for her was art and depth, and which is why chapter 1 is dedicated to her.
Thank you, Neha. So really, I mean, like listening to Kusha, listening to the story here, it's a little scary, isn't it? That what is there deep down within you, which you really don't know, which is lying latent inside you, and then is suddenly manifesting itself in all kinds of, in very different kinds of expression. So do you think everyone who has any kind of problem should really go to a therapist? So why therapy? Really, because she's got a lovely chapter which says, it's actually chapter 2, which says, "What's all this hullabaloo about therapy? And isn't inner work just woo-woo?" So there are really two sides. Some people who want to be over-counseled and some who will not accept. And there's really a lot of you know,
Stigma.
pardon?
Stigma.
Not just stigma, ignorance and cloud.
Ignorance.
It's really about, shame without the, what we really need to do is have shame without the E. Because we know that a lot of the shame that we feel is in fact a sham.
That's absolutely right. That should probably be my next book, or it should be your book. Yes, shame without the E is, basically shame is a sham. Should everybody go to therapy? In India, there's a little bit of a stigma around this fact. Everybody asks me this, even at podcasts and stuff. And I always say, if you pathologize it, it's going to be scary. So I don't think everybody needs to consider themselves a thing, like a problem that needs to be fixed. This is not my approach to therapy. This is not my approach to mental health or sexual wellness. But I do think we all need a space, be it through religion or through guidance or through cognitive support or through art or through dance or through music or through literature festivals, which gives us something to connect to that's not just that's not just bypassing the wound, that it's okay, it happened. We need like-minded people to challenge us, to help us grow, to show us direction, to like where you're headed. And why I'm kind of like focusing on this one, and it's just, it's a graphic one, if you may, because we don't talk about men and the trauma that men face. It's 1 in 6 women, 1 in 3 men, and 1 in 2 transgender people are sexually abused in India every minute. It's that high. So, in this audience, how many men are there? 1 in 3 men would probably experience a bad touch, maybe by the house help, an auntie, a cousin, a male cousin, a brother. It happens. And there's no processing because we don't even cognitively think that men can. So in therapy, it's a one place, which is not your mother, it's not your mother-in-law telling you some advice. It's for you to actually access memories like this, Haniji, keep going, and to just deal with what your psyche has experienced, which you may not be able to say to anybody.
You've been using this word, we've been using the word therapy, but it is also a very complex and very multi-layered word. So will you just tell us, like, which therapist do I go to? Do I go to a psychotherapist? Do I go to a psychoanalyst? We really don't know the difference.
Yeah, thank you for that question, which is why there's a chapter on this exactly in the book. So the book is divided into 4 parts. It's for this reason, right? Not everybody can afford a therapist. Not everybody knows what therapy is. Not everybody even is interested in even thinking that deep. But what you can do is pick up a book or pick up, the audiobook or pick up any self-help space in sexuality. What it'll do for you, and then I'll get to the therapy question, is that it'll help you map some of the ways in which your trauma has mapped out in your life, which you may not even know. So your wife may be saying to you, "You're not listening to me. I'm asking you to touch me this way. You're not listening." And you may be like, I'm listening. I'm good. I can do it. So that's a normal defense response, right? Or you may say, I'm not talking about men and women only, I'm talking about any gender. You may say, no, there's no problem in our sex life, we're good, and you may be crying in the shower. You may be having eating disorders. You may be having an alcohol addiction. You may be cheating. You may be, wanting sexual hunger to be met outside your relationship. How many of us have been betrayed? How many of us have betrayed? So these are trauma aspects that, that live with us, and we just normalize it when we don't talk in culture of shame. So when you go to a therapist, this is someone who has basic understanding of how the human mind works. They're going to help you if they're basically trained to kind of come out of your grief. Now that's a counselor. If you go to an alternative healer like a Reiki practitioner, religious guru, a coach, they can tell you the symptoms. Also important. If you go to a depth therapist, typically somebody like me who works long-term, I don't work long-term anymore, I'm booked out for the entirety of life because India has so much trauma. But if you go to a depth therapist, they will basically take you from point A to point B to point C and then show you what the dots are in your life, what manifests as trauma in your life, which you may not even have thought of, right? And so the book goes into part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, 4 parts, kind of like having a pseudo-therapist with you to take you through a journey of healing on your own terms. And the feedback I've got is that once the book is done, people have a trauma map to then take to a professional and say, hey, I worked on this came up for me, this memory came up for me, can you help me go deeper? Because that's not what a mother can do, that's not what a partner, boyfriend, girlfriend can do.
Can therapy do any harm?
Yes, the culture of therapy, I think, is harmful. This new culture of like making everything feel like a problem. I don't think that's real therapy. I think that's therapy speak. People like to say they're
Insta therapy.
Insta therapy. Everything is trauma. Everything is oppression. No, it's not. That their systems are oppressive. You may be hurt. You may be betrayed. Everything is not rape. Something I talk about a lot in sex therapy. Everything is not rape. There's also bad sex. There's also uncomfortable touch. There's also kinky sex, And these are differences that if you're super traumatized, you're not going to be able to tell. Everything is going to feel attacking to you. So as a woman, and I wear these things and I carry my body in a certain way in India, in public, and I call myself a sex therapist. So early on, I had this narrative. Men will be so dangerous for me because they will always want sex, because I'm speaking about sex so openly. And this was one of my narratives that I had to work through to change internally, because I was actually manifesting what I had told myself, that all men will be dangerous. They're not. In fact, I get a lot of support from men wherever I go, make really good male friends. I just tell them, this is my work, can you protect me like this? Can you make sure this shady guy doesn't come close? They help me. Healing is for everybody, especially healers as well. And so it can just harm, therapy can harm when you're not looking at yourself deep enough, when you're looking for just like a crutch. Good therapy will not make you dependent on someone. Good therapy will get you to leave therapy. But it'll take you deep enough so that you can work on yourself and you have clarity.
Neha, I get where you're coming from. I get your professional expertise in this. But my question really comes from the fact that for about 3, 4, 5 years, I did an agony aunt column in the Mumbai Mirror. And unfortunately, that column became very, very popular. But it became popular because it became, fun reading for a lot of people. And I don't think it really helped the people who it should have been targeted at. But having said that, my question comes from the fact that I used to get a lot of questions saying, oh, I am so depressed. My boyfriend is not paying any more attention to me. And these are 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds. And I used to say, the whole thing was a lot about not accepting the fact that a relationship is over, not being able to let go. And I remember this really when I did a cover story on Osho, who then became Osho. At that time, he was just Bhagwan.
Right.
Yeah, and his really thing was ego comes from let go. The words ego, play on words. And I used to tell them that, look, the problems that you have at 15 will probably not be there at 16. So just, chill a bit. And I used to tell them that don't use this word depressed. I'm into depression. Now, depression is a clinical word. Yes, I can be depressed because, my boyfriend, flirted with somebody else. But at the same time, when I used to kind of read about teen suicides, I used to get really worried and thinking that, look, I'm being flippant. I'm telling them just let go, get on with your life. Basically, that used to be my sort of the theme the whole takya kalam of the thing that get on with your life, let go. It's a bad relationship, don't try to hang, because it was your ego. Why is this boy no longer talking to me? But things happen, right? But when I used to read about teen suicides, I used to really worry that, is this someone who I've treated so flippantly? Has that person gone and jumped? So really, where is this line between, something that you just have to let go, because you're just depressed, temporarily, and where does it sink into clinical depression?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful point, and I think a lot of us in the audience can also ascribe to this, that ma'am's you're hitting on the key intergenerational rifts in today's mental health conversation. Gen Z people will say everything is depression, anxiety, and bad stuff right now, and it have to be. And so actually, American Gen Zs will say, let's get on medication, and American Gen Z therapists will say, yes, let's get you on medication. And then there is another generation there saying, wait, hold on, that's not the solution to everything. There's a process. And there's my generation, which is, we're kind of in the middle. We are like those millennial, early Gen Xers is my generation. So we are kind of in the middle. So I actually see both sides, and actually more than two sides, and my clinical practice every day. There are families that come to me. There are couples. I do healing retreats. And that's a very important question. And I don't think we can look at this question outside of the context, ma'am. The context is that India is a shape-shifting society. Whether you are an urban Indian today in Bombay, or you're an urban Indian today in New York, and you've moved to India, or your children are in India, there is something very different happening to us as a people that not other people can relate to. It's not the same in Singapore. It's not the same even in Nepal. It's not the same in Sri Lanka. It's India. It's this particular land. There's some. So that's
even
how
Indians in all those places.
Indians in all those places. So we are moving from a certain way of doing things to more opening. So from that lens, I do support the idea that we should open the definition of trauma. Trauma is not just childhood sexual abuse. It is also walking on the street and getting harassed can also be traumatic. Going to your partner and saying, hey, I was just touched really badly by this man, and the partner saying, oh, it's your fault. Why did you wear a sleeveless top? Or let me control you. That can also be traumatic.
So fast. Okay. Shall we quickly go? How many minutes more do we have? And we would like to open it to questions. So I'll just ask this one question. So 5 minutes including questioner? Okay, so just this one question, because again, it's about what we are surrounded, especially today, that we want to put everything into this one silo, one size fits all, whether it's your religion, whether it's your culture, whether it's the way you think, whether it's the kind of books you read, and certainly what is your sexuality.
Yeah.
It's surprising how much we are still into missionary position when we are, when we've sort of been talking so much about gender.
Literally.
When I say missionary position, I mean it as a state of mind.
I also mean it literally.
I'm serious.
No, I was saying I also mean it literally. I mean, there are some conditions in our mind in India about how sexuality should flow. It should be, you should stop talking about sex until 18. You do your homework, don't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a partner. 18 to 25, you have to get married. 25 to 32, you have 2 children. And then 32 to 40, you maybe enjoy your life a little bit because your children are growing up. And then 40 onwards, it's actually dead. So which is why you get a lot of perverted, this is the narrative. And 40-year-old woman owning her sexuality, she's a pervert. 40-year-old man, maybe a very gentleman, very, very lovely man who has a high libido. Oh, he's a creep. So this is really kind of like how we live, and it is kind of this one size fits all, and it comes from so many places. So which is what Unashamed is really about also, to just showcase the India that I see is a very different India from who's presented on the mainstream newspapers. This is the shadow India, the India that's been living in lesbian, gay relationships, in open marriages, consensual open marriages, of course, difficult marriages as well, fluidity, gender fluid men. There's actually a chapter, thank you for reminding me, about a 60-year-old man who's gay, whose wife came to me and said, I want to separate being friends. And that's what we did. We worked on it for just 5 years, and they're today really good friends, and he's gay, and he's living with his other partner in a part of the country, happily. So it's possible, it happens, and it's happening right in front of us as we just have to get out of one size fits all, because we are all edgy and messy in our own ways, and I would wish for us to embrace that rather than be ashamed of that.
Okay, how many questions do we have? I didn't ask for applause. I asked for to please raise hands on how many questions do we have. Otherwise, I will continue the conversation.
She's saying 1, maximum 2, but I think she should continue.
Yeah. Ask a question? No? I ask the question. The ball is again in my court. All right. So
should we wait? I'm sure it'll come. It'll come from the audience. Yeah. Are there no questions, really?
No, please be unashamed. Please stand up and say, I'm not having...
Yeah, there is one. There is one.
I'm not having sex with my wife, and why? Or I'm not having enough sex from my husband.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm asking that question.
Wait, someone's asking. Someone's asking. Why like that? Oh.
Sorry, I'm repeating. Every
mic.
time I'm standing up, I'm so sorry. I'm Anu. Thank God I don't have grandchildren. But for people who do have grandchildren, in today's world, children are very active sexually in school, since I've been a teacher. And it's hard to convince the parent or even tell. They don't want to believe it. What should the parents be doing so that the children are close to them and they know what the child is up to? And I really don't know. I don't have grandchildren.
I just want to say that I'm very sorry to see that all the school children we saw in the morning don't seem to be here. And I hope that's not under the instructions that don't go to a section, because we really wanted to talk to those children that don't be ashamed of your sexuality. You know, you are not necessarily A and B and C. You can go all the way up to Z, and you can be A, B, C, D, all in your one persona. So
that's true.
Her question.
Well, ma'am, from that perspective, children have been sexually active since the beginning of time, as you know, as a teacher, way better than me, right? And people are sexually active. They do things even if the government says, no, don't do this, this is illegal. Or people do. People find ways. And India is the best thing of living a double life. One people will say something at home and their life inside will be totally, totally different. I think what's happening now is that in schools, people are not ashamed or shy, or they don't have tools, children don't have tools to hide anymore, because it's normalized within the peer group. When in our peer group, it was not so normal. There was those 2 kids having sex in the bathroom. Now it's normalized. It's incentivized. I put a hot picture of myself on Instagram, and like at 15, and that's also sexualizing myself, and I get. So I think parents today have more responsibility to be the change they want to see. So the joint family, the breaking of the joint family is also very, very guilty of this. It's the culprit to this. Children don't have safe spaces. Parents are working, and I empathize with parents. We're working. Life is expensive. Both parents are working in big cities. So children are using social media as their guides. That's what you were going to say, right? Yeah. They're using social media. Again, not their fault. So instead of policing, and sometimes I am pro-policing. I don't think it's all gentle parenting. You must protect your kids from difficult apps, from pornography before a certain age. I was definitely protected, which did help me develop a very healthy sexuality, which was not like this porn thing going on today. And I thank my mother for that. I didn't like her at the time, but she was right. But I do think that we do need to develop a little bit of softness and tenderness for what the child is wanting. Is it a boyfriend for boyfriend's sake? Is it attention? Is it questions answered? What is that underlying need? And so parents, if they model that within themselves in relationships, children often learn. Children don't listen to what parents say or teachers say. Children copy. Children are sponges. In fact, if you say something, they'll do the opposite. But what you do, they'll show up. I mean, I'm exactly like my mother. Like in so many ways. And I may not like that at all about myself, or I may love it. So we learn through modeling. And so I just think that's a very important point in sexuality. For that, I think parents need to read more and empower themselves more. Don't be scared. It's here. AI is here. It's going to get worse.
Do we have to stop? Shima? Yes? Okay. So thank you very much.
Thank you so
And
much. It's lovely.